She called it junk. Right in front of me, sitting in my chair, using my laptop. She looked at the screen, laughed, and said, "This is all just useless encrypted garbage." Then, she hit delete. The room didn't react. People were still laughing, still drinking, still pretending nothing important was happening. But I stopped breathing, because I knew exactly what she had just erased. Not files, not data. A key. The only local key tied to a classified system worth over $2 billion. No backup, no recovery, no second chance. And while she was filing her nails like she'd done me a favor, the system had already made a decision. Not about the mistake, about the threat. They didn't know it yet. But within the next 48 hours, accounts would freeze, access would vanish, and the Whitmore name would start collapsing in real time. But none of that started at the gala, or the arrests, or the moment the Secretary of Defense called my name. It started much earlier, with a pattern, and a family that had always assumed I'd be the one to fix everything. To understand how everything collapsed, you have to go back to that night in my father's house, when she decided my work didn't matter. I don't think people ever really notice me when they walk into my father's house. They notice the house. It sits just outside Washington, D.C., up on a quiet rise where the road curves like it's trying to keep its distance. All glass and steel, floor-to-ceiling windows that reflect the skyline at night, like it belongs to us. About 9,000 square feet of clean lines, sharp angles, and money that doesn't explain itself. My father calls it earned. Everyone else just calls it General Edward Whitmore's place. On weekends, the house fills up. Not loudly, never like a party you'd see on TV. It's more controlled than that. Officers in pressed uniforms, contractors who don't introduce themselves fully. A few political names dropped into conversation like punctuation. Expensive wine poured slowly. Laughter that always sounds just a little rehearsed. That night was no different. People gathered in clusters, talking in low, confident tones. Deals disguised as small talk. Opinions disguised as facts. Everyone standing just close enough to power to feel like they belonged near it. I stayed where I always stay, near the edge of the room, where the lighting softens and people don't feel the need to perform. It's easier to disappear there, easier to watch. That's something I learned early. In my family, attention isn't neutral. It's a currency. And if you're not careful, it gets spent on you in ways that cost more than it gives. So I don't compete for it. I just step out of the way. I had my laptop open in front of me on a small side table. Matte black, thick. No logo, no brand. It looked like something you'd pull out of a storage closet from 2008, heavy, outdated, forgettable. That was intentional. In a room like that, people notice what looks expensive. They notice what shines. They notice what they understand. They don't notice what doesn't ask to be noticed. That's where I work best. Most people assume I bring that laptop out of habit, something to keep me busy while the rest of the room moves around me. They assume I'm checking emails, maybe doing something administrative, something small. No one ever asks, and I don't correct them. That night, I wasn't there for the gathering. I was running a controlled test local environment, isolated from external networks, temporary bypass enabled so I could execute a simulation without routing through secured channels. It sounds complicated. It isn't. It's just work. The kind of work that doesn't look important until it is. My eyes stayed on the screen, scanning logs, watching response times, making sure everything stayed inside expected parameters. Small fluctuations matter, patterns matter more. In my world, nothing breaks all at once. It drifts first. Across the room, my sister was having a completely different kind of night. Victoria doesn't drift. She moves fast, loud, certain, like the room was built for her. She was pacing with her MacBook, heels clicking against the floor in sharp, uneven beats. Talking to no one and everyone at the same time. "I swear this is insane," she said, flipping her hair back. "I just cleared space last week. How does 4K footage even take this much storage?" A few people laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar enough to respond to. That's how it works here. You don't have to be right. You just have to sound like you belong. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. I already knew how this would play out. Victoria has a pattern. When something stops working, she doesn't slow down to understand it. She replaces it, deletes it, moves past it like the problem was never worth the time. And in most parts of her life, that works. Because someone else cleans up what she leaves behind. For a long time, that someone was me. I didn't think about that as I watched the numbers scroll across my screen. Not consciously. But patterns don't disappear just because you stop naming them. They wait. And sooner or later, they repeat. Patterns don't repeat all at once. They wait for a moment when no one's paying attention. For me, that moment came in the space of a phone call. My phone vibrated against the table, short, precise. No name, just an internal routing tag I recognized immediately. That alone told me it wasn't optional. I didn't hesitate. I closed the active window, locked the session into standby, and stood up. I need to take this, I said, not to anyone in particular. No one asked questions. They never do. I stepped out onto the side balcony. The door slid shut behind me, and just like that, the noise dropped away. No laughter, no voices, just the cold air and the distant hum of the city. Charlotte, the voice on the other end said, "Quick confirmation." "Go ahead." It was routine. A few technical checks. Status verification. I gave them what they needed, confirmed I'd complete the local run within the hour, and ended the call. Total time, maybe 2 minutes. That's all it took. When I stepped back inside, nothing looked different. Same conversations, same laughter, same glasses catching the light. But the first thing I noticed wasn't the room. It was my chair. It had shifted just a few inches to the side. Most people wouldn't see that. I did. Then I saw her. Victoria was sitting where I had been. One leg crossed over the other, leaning back like the space had always been hers. My cable was plugged into her MacBook. My laptop was open in front of her. No hesitation. No curiosity. Just ownership. I walked over slowly. Not rushed. Not confrontational. Just certain. The screen was still active. Black background. Command window open. And right in the center, in red, local decryption key lost. I didn't react. Not outwardly. "Relax," Victoria said, still focused on her nails. She blew on them lightly, inspecting the shape. "I cleaned up some of your junk files." I kept my eyes on the screen. Junk files. That's what she saw. She glanced up at me, a small smile forming like she expected appreciation. "Seriously? What even is this thing?" she said, tapping the edge of the laptop. "It's thick. It's ugly. And it was full of random encrypted garbage." She leaned back further, satisfied. "So I deleted it," she added. "I needed the space. My video actually matters." I moved my hand to the trackpad. No response. The system had already transitioned containment mode. Automatic. Immediate. I opened the storage panel. Empty. Not partially cleared. Not reorganized. Empty. Every directory that mattered gone from local access. I scrolled once, just to confirm what I already knew. Timestamp. Command execution. Full directory selection. User input confirmed. Delete request processed. She hadn't removed a few files. She had selected everything. There's a difference between making a mistake and erasing a system. Most people don't know where that line is. Victoria never needed to. "Next time," she said, already turning back to her own screen, "maybe use something normal like everyone else." Normal. I closed the laptop slowly. No sudden movements. No raised voice. That's the part people always expect. A reaction. An argument. Something loud enough to match what just happened. I don't do that. Because reactions don't change outcomes. They just make people feel better about ignoring them. I slid the laptop into my bag and adjusted the strap over my shoulder. Around us, nothing had shifted. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed too loudly at something that wasn't that funny. My father stood across the room, telling a story that made him sound better than he is. No one noticed. Not the screen, not the message, not the fact that something irreversible had just happened 3 feet away from them. Victoria thought she had cleared space for a video. She didn't know she had just erased the only local key tied to a $2 billion system. She didn't know that system wouldn't see it as an accident. And she definitely didn't know that somewhere, far outside this house, something had already started responding. I turned toward the door. No rush. Just one quiet step forward out of the room and into the part of the story they still thought they could control. Some mistakes don't stay in the room where they happen. They move. Quietly. Efficiently. Without asking anyone's permission. By the time I reached the hallway, the system had already started doing what it was designed to do. Escalate. Not emotionally. Not personally. Structurally. I didn't check anything yet. I didn't need to. I already understood the sequence: key loss, authentication failure, breach classification, automated routing. In systems like that, there's no pause to figure things out. There's only response. I was almost at the door when his voice cut through the noise behind me. Charlotte. I stopped. Not because I wanted to, because ignoring him would create a different kind of problem, and I've learned to choose my problems carefully. I turned. General Edward Whitmore stood a few steps behind me, posture straight, expression already set. He didn't look confused. He didn't look concerned. He looked inconvenienced. "What did you do to your sister?" he asked. No context, no question about what happened, just a conclusion waiting to be confirmed. "Nothing," I said. He exhaled sharply, like I had just proven his point. "She's in the other room upset," he said, crying over some computer issue. "You couldn't just let her use it?" There it was, the version of reality he preferred. "She already used it," I said. "That's not the point," he snapped. "You always do this. You make things difficult for no reason." I held his gaze. Didn't argue. Didn't explain. He stepped closer. Lowering his voice like that made it reasonable. "You're the younger one," he said. "Act like it. Learn to give way. Not everything is about you. Not everything is about you." I've heard that sentence in different forms my entire life. It usually shows up right before I'm expected to fix something I didn't break. "She deleted my files," I said. He waved it off immediately, a small, dismissive motion like brushing dust off his sleeve. "Then restore them," he said. "That's what you do, right? Computer tricks. Computer tricks." I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was accurate, just not in the way he thought. "She needed space," he continued. "And honestly, if your work is that important, maybe don't keep it on some brick from the Cold War." He reached out and tapped the side of my bag lightly, like it was a joke. It wasn't. "Tomorrow," he added, already turning away. "You're buying her an external drive. Something decent. Consider it an apology. Not a suggestion. Not a request. An order." I nodded once. Of course. That was all he needed. He walked back toward the center of the room, already done with the conversation. In his mind, the situation had been handled. Authority applied. Balance restored. That's how it always works for him. Define the problem. Assign the blame. Move on before anything complicated has a chance to surface. I turned back toward the door. No anger. No frustration. Just clarity. Because while he was deciding how the situation should be understood, the system had already decided what it was. And those two things don't negotiate. By now, the chain reaction was already moving past anything he could influence. Logs were being parsed. Triggers confirmed. Flags elevated. In less than 60 seconds, what he called a computer issue had crossed a threshold that removed it from personal control entirely. That's the part most people never see. They think problems stay small if you treat them like they are. They don't. They scale according to impact, not perception. And impact doesn't care who your father is. I stepped outside. The night air felt colder this time. Cleaner. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the silence settle. Inside that house, nothing had changed. Music still playing. Voices still rising and falling like nothing had shifted. Victoria was probably still in the other room, convinced she had been wronged. My father was probably telling another story, unaware he had just stepped into one he couldn't control. And me? I adjusted the strap on my bag and started walking. Because the truth is, once something like this starts, there's no fixing it with a conversation. No smoothing it over. No rewriting it to fit a version of reality that makes everyone comfortable. There's only what actually happened. And what happens next. And somewhere, in a system designed not to care about family, rank, or perception, both of those things had already been recorded, and they were already on their way to people who don't ask for explanations. Only evidence. Evidence doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't slow down so people can catch up emotionally. It just arrives. By the time I reached the SCIF, the system was already ahead of everyone in that house. Underground. Reinforced concrete. No windows. No signal in, no signal out. The kind of place where reality doesn't get filtered through opinions. Badge. Palm. Secondary verification. The door sealed behind me with a mechanical click that always sounds final. no matter how many times you hear it. Inside, the room was already active. Wall-to-wall displays. Data moving fast enough to look like noise if you don't know what you're looking at. Analysts standing closer than usual. Conversations cut short the second I stepped in. "You're here," one of them said, relief slipping through before he could hide it. "We're getting anomaly flags across multiple nodes." "I know," I said. I set my bag down and pulled the laptop out. Same casing, same weight. Same thing Victoria had called useless less than an hour ago. I powered it on in restricted mode. No interface. No shortcuts. Just system response. "What triggered it?" someone asked. "Local key loss," I said. That changed the room. You can tell when a word lands the wrong way. Not loudly, just a shift. A pause that lasts half a second longer than it should. "Local?" another voice said. "How?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I connected through a controlled channel and initiated log retrieval. The main screen cleared, then began populating line by line. Timestamp. Session ID. Hardware signature. Clean, precise, unarguable. "Pull the execution chain," I said. The system complied immediately. Command history loaded. Directory access. Selection pattern. Then the line that mattered. Delete request full directory. No partials. No segmentation. Everything. "Authorization?" someone asked quietly. "Temporary bypass," I said. That one was on me. Silence settled in, not confusion, not panic. Recognition. Because now it wasn't a question of if something happened. It was a question of who. "Trace origin," I said. The system mapped the interaction instantly. External device connected via physical cable. MAC address identified. User input pattern matched. Then the system did what it was designed to do. It completed the picture. I opened the mirrored archive. Everything that had been deleted locally was still there. Captured in real time, preserved the moment the command executed. Not just the files, the context. I expanded the capture log and selected the largest file. Video. I opened it. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Victoria's face filled the screen, bright lighting, controlled smile, talking to an invisible audience about nothing that mattered. Then the angle shifted. My laptop entered the frame. Her hand moved across the trackpad, scrolling, selecting, expanding, more. Then, click, delete. No hesitation, no awareness. Just action. I closed the video. "Identity confirmed," I said. No one asked for clarification. They had seen enough. "Where did it route?" someone asked. I pulled up the destination field. Federal intake. Automated escalation protocol. No delay. No approval. Already transmitted. That's the part people outside this world don't understand. Once a system like this crosses a threshold, it doesn't belong to you anymore. Not to me. Not to my father. Not to anyone in that house. It belongs to process. And process doesn't negotiate. One of the senior officers leaned in slightly, eyes fixed on the screen. "This is going to trigger a full response," he said. "It already has," I replied. I leaned back, letting the system continue its analysis. Threat classification updated. Containment protocols active. External monitoring expanded. All from a single action someone thought was cleaning up storage. Behind me, someone let out a slow breath. "So, what are we calling this?" I didn't hesitate. "Unauthorized access resulting in critical system compromise," I said. "Pending investigation for intent." That's the language that matters. Not mistake. Not accident. Impact first. Intent later. I closed the final log and secured the session. For a moment, the room stayed quiet. Not because they didn't have more questions. Because they already understood the answer. This wasn't small, and it wasn't going away. I picked up my bag. "Where are you going?" someone asked. "Home," I said. That wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. Because by now, what started in a quiet corner of a crowded room had already moved beyond all of us. And somewhere, in a system that doesn't care who you are, the story had already been written. All that was left was watching it unfold. Watching it unfold doesn't mean staying blind to it. It means knowing exactly where to look. By the time I got back to my apartment, the situation had already outgrown anything that could be handled with a conversation. The system was moving. Reports were being routed. Flags were being elevated. But people don't see systems. They see problems. And when people see problems, they look for someone to carry them. I set my bag down on the counter and didn't turn on the lights. The city outside gave me enough visibility, soft glow through the glass, distant headlights moving like a pattern I didn't need to think about. Routine matters. It keeps your decisions clean. I changed, washed my hands, poured a glass of water, and sat down at my terminal. Not the skiff network. Mine. Segmented, controlled. Built for observation without exposure. I entered a short command. A list of monitoring nodes came up instantly. One of them was tied to an address I knew by memory. My father's house. I selected it. Audio came online first. Low background noise, movement. A chair shifting, then a voice. "James." "Say that again," he said, sharper than usual. There was a pause on the other end of his call. Whoever he was speaking to didn't matter. His reaction did. "No, that's not possible," he said. "There has to be a mistake." Another pause. His breathing changed. Faster. Tighter. "What do you mean suspended?" he snapped. "I have clearance." Silence. Then the shift. "Yes, sir," he said, quieter now. "Understood." The call ended. For a second, nothing. Then something hit a surface hard. "Victoria," he called. Footsteps. Quick. Confident. Still untouched by reality. "What?" she said. "I'm editing." "Come here." Now. A pause. Then slower steps. "What is it?" she asked, irritation still in her voice. "They suspended my access," he said. That landed. "What do you mean suspended?" "I mean, locked out," he said. "System access. Under investigation." There was a beat of silence. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny, because she didn't understand yet. "Okay, so call someone," she said. "It's probably a system error." "It's not a system error," he snapped. "They used the word breach." That word changed everything. You could hear it in the way the room stopped moving. "What breach?" she asked. "They didn't say," he said, "but it's tied to my command." Another silence. Longer this time. "Wait," she said slowly. "This isn't about yesterday, is it?" James didn't answer right away. "What did you do?" he asked. Her tone shifted instantly. "Excuse me?" she said. "You were on that laptop," he said. "What did you delete?" "I told you," she said, defensive now. "Just some junk files. Nothing important." "You don't know that," he said. "Oh my God," she snapped. "Don't start blaming me for your job problems." I leaned back slightly. There it was. Not responsibility. Deflection. Survival mode. James exhaled hard. "This is bad," he said. "They don't suspend access over nothing." "It won't matter," she cut in quickly. He didn't sound convinced. "And if it does?" That's when it happened. The shift from confusion to strategy. "Then we don't make it about us," she said. I leaned forward just slightly. James hesitated. "What does that mean?" "It means we redirect it," she said. "Calm now. Focused." "To who?" he asked. I already knew. "To Charlotte." Simple. Clean. Predictable. James let out a short, uncertain laugh. "That doesn't make sense. How would we even—" "She works in tech," Victoria said, cutting him off. "She's always on that thing. You said it yourself, you don't even know what she does." "That's not proof," he said. "They'll ask questions. Then we give them something that sounds real," she replied. "Say she had access. Say she was testing something and it went wrong. That's risky." "Everything is risky right now," she shot back. "You want to sit there and wait for them to decide it was you?" Silence. Then the part that mattered most. "Think about it," she said, quieter now. "She's already the problem child. Dad doesn't trust her. He'll back us up." Another pause. "He already thinks she's selfish," she added. That was it. Not logic. Not evidence. Convenience. "We'd need him to say that," James said. "He will," Victoria replied. "He always does." The room went still. "Then, okay," James said. "We say she used my access without permission." "Exactly," Victoria said. "Frame it like one of her projects went too far." I muted the audio. Not because I needed silence. Because I had already heard enough. They didn't try to fix the problem. They didn't ask what actually happened. They didn't look for the truth. They went straight to what had always worked. Use me. That's the part people misunderstand about betrayal. It doesn't start when things go wrong. It starts when you realize you were always the plan. They went straight to what had always worked. Use me. But systems don't follow family patterns. They follow evidence. And once that line gets crossed, everything starts moving whether you're ready or not. I didn't reopen the audio. I didn't need to hear the rest of their plan. Plans like that don't survive contact with reality, they just delay it. I pulled up a secondary panel instead. Live monitoring. Not interference. Not control. Observation. Because by now, this wasn't about what they said. It was about what the system was already doing. And right on schedule. The first crack showed up exactly where I expected it. Retail. Victoria doesn't handle pressure by slowing down. She spends. The feed came up clean, bright lighting, polished floors, everything designed to make you feel like money is an identity. She stood at the counter, holding a handbag like the decision had already been made. I'll take this one, she said. Confident, casual, untouched. The associates smiled the way they're trained to. Of course. Victoria slid the card across the counter. James's card. I leaned back slightly. The machine processed it. 1 second. 2. Then, a soft beep. Sorry, the associate said, still smiling but tighter now. It looks like this didn't go through. Victoria blinked. That's not possible, she said immediately. Try again. The associate did. Same result. Another soft beep. The smile faded just a little more. Do you have another form of payment? Victoria let out a short laugh. No, you just need to run it again. Third attempt. Declined. Now people were starting to look. Not directly. Not obvious. Just enough. Victoria's posture shifted. Not panic yet. Irritation. Fine, she said, pulling out her phone. I'll call the bank. She stepped to the side. Lowering her voice like that could contain what was happening. The call connected. Automated system. Please hold while we access your account. Her foot tapped against the floor. Fast. Impatient. A few seconds passed. Then the voice came back. Flat. Neutral. We are unable to process this request. Her expression tightened. What do you mean unable? She said. I just need you to authorize a transaction. A pause. Then the line that changes everything. This account has been frozen under federal authority in accordance with the Espionage Act. For further information, please contact your legal representative. Silence. Real silence. Not confusion. Not annoyance. The kind that happens when reality doesn't match the story you've been telling yourself. What? Victoria said. The system didn't repeat itself. It disconnected. She stood there, phone still in her hand. Like if she didn't move, it wouldn't be real. Then everything hit at once. This is ridiculous, she said louder now. There has to be a mistake. The associate didn't respond. They never do. Victoria grabbed the bag off the counter like it was already hers. It's fine, she said quickly. I'll come back later. She walked out fast. Too fast. I closed the feed. I didn't need to watch the rest. Because at the exact same time, across town, the same process was playing out in a different language. I pulled up the base access log. James. Flagged. Restricted. Under review. Then, revoked. The camera feed came online. He approached the checkpoint like any other day. Badge in hand. Confidence still intact. Routine is powerful like that. It convinces you nothing has changed, right up until everything has. He scanned his card. Green light didn't come. Red. He frowned. Scanned again. Red. An MP stepped forward. Calm. Professional. Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside. There's an error, James said. Run it again. The MP took the card, scanned it himself. Same result. He looked back at James. Your access has been revoked, sir. That's when it shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough. That's not possible, James said. I have active clearance. Not anymore, the MP replied. 2 more MPs approached. Not aggressive. Just final. Sir, I'm going to need your CAC. James didn't move right away. You don't understand, he said. There's been a mistake. The MP didn't argue. He just held out his hand. James handed over the card. Then came the part that changes everything for someone like him. Your sidearm, sir. That landed differently. There's something about removing a weapon from someone in uniform. It's not just security. It's identity. James hesitated, then slowly unholstered it and passed it over. No raised voices. No scene. Just control being reassigned. He stepped back, empty-handed. I closed the feed. For a moment, The room around me stayed quiet. Not because nothing was happening, because everything that needed to happen already had. They thought this was a delay, a glitch, something temporary that could be corrected with the right call, the right tone, the right pressure. It wasn't. It was the system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Not loudly, not emotionally, just correctly. And the worst part? They still didn't understand why. And when people don't understand what's happening, they try to take control back, not by fixing the problem, by forcing an outcome. I didn't call anyone. I didn't respond to the missed calls stacking up on my phone, because by now, there was nothing left to explain that the system hadn't already recorded. I opened a quiet monitoring panel instead. Motion alerts, tied to one location, my apartment. I left it open not because I expected something immediately, because patterns don't stop under pressure. They accelerate. About an hour later, the alert came through. Unauthorized entry. I didn't move. I just opened the feed. Infrared, low light, clean. The front door opened slowly. Not forced. Key access. Of course, my father still had a copy, which meant they did too. James stepped in first. Careful. Controlled. But not as confident as he had been at the gate earlier. Victoria followed right behind him, and the first thing she said told me everything. Why does it look like this? My apartment was exactly how I wanted it. Minimal. Quiet. Nothing unnecessary. No expensive distractions. No signals. People like Victoria expect value to be visible. So I made sure it wasn't. James scanned the room quickly. "Just find the laptop," he said. No discussion. No hesitation. They had already decided what the problem was, and how to solve it. Victoria pulled out her phone. "Wait," she said. "I'm recording this." James looked at her. "Why?" "In case we need proof," she said. "That we handled it." Handled it. I leaned back slightly. The infrared feed captured everything more clearly than her phone ever would. Heat signatures. Movement. Positioning. Nothing missed. James moved to the table. He saw the bag. Opened it. Pulled out the laptop. Same matte black casing. Same weight. Same thing she had dismissed as worthless. "This is it," he said. Victoria stepped closer, angling her camera. "Show it," she said. "Make it clear." James held it up for a second, then set it down, and for a moment, he hesitated. Not long. Just enough to register that somewhere deep down he knew this wasn't right. Then that part disappeared. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a hammer. Not subtle, not precise. Just force. "Are you sure?" Victoria asked. Not because she cared, because she wanted confirmation on record. James nodded once. "This ends it," he said. "No, it didn't." He raised the hammer. "I didn't move. I didn't intervene, because by the time someone decides to destroy evidence, they've already created it." The hammer came down. The moment it hit, everything changed. Not slowly, not partially. Instantly. The internal impact sensor triggered first, then thermal spike detection, then structural breach. 3 systems. Simultaneous. The lights in the apartment shifted from soft white to solid red. Victoria flinched. "What the?" Before she could finish, the front door slammed shut behind them. Hard. Final. Locks engaged in sequence. Mechanical. Unresponsive. James froze. "What did you do?" Victoria said, panic cutting through her voice. "I didn't do anything," he snapped. That was the first true thing he had said, because this wasn't them anymore. This was the system. A voice filled the room. Calm. Neutral. Unavoidable. Warning. Government asset destruction detected. Victoria's phone shook in her hand. "What is this?" she said. James stepped back from the table. "This is some kind of security system," he said. No, it was more than that. Extraction team has been deployed. That's when it hit. Not all at once, but enough. "This isn't just her computer," Victoria said, her voice breaking. James didn't answer. Because now, he understood something she didn't. This wasn't a situation you talk your way out of. Victoria turned toward the wall panel. "Turn it off," she said. "Just turn it off." James tried. "Controls?" "Overrides." Nothing responded. The system didn't recognize him, which meant he didn't exist to it. "I can't," he said. Victoria started pacing. "This is insane," she said. "It's just a laptop." No, it wasn't. And now she was starting to feel the difference. I watched the feed as everything continued logging. Time, location, biometric signatures, audio, video. The hammer strike wasn't just recorded. It was verified, cross-referenced, sealed. James ran a hand through his hair. "We need to get out," he said. "There's no way out," Victoria replied, staring at the door like it might open if she wanted it badly enough. She turned back to him. "Call someone," she said. He didn't move, because for the first time, he understood the truth. This wasn't something you call your way out of. This was something that had already called someone else. I opened a secondary window. External response feed. Unmarked vehicles. Moving fast. Nosirins. No warning. That's how real consequences arrive. Not loud. Just on time. Back in the apartment, Victoria's voice rose again. "This is her fault," she said. "She set this up." James didn't argue. Because at this point, blame didn't matter. Timeline did. And they were already behind it. I muted the audio. I didn't need to hear the rest. I already knew what they were going to say. The same thing people always say when control disappears. "This isn't fair. This isn't right. This wasn't supposed to happen." I looked at the broken laptop on the screen. Casing cracked. Internal components exposed. Exactly what James thought would fix everything. A clean break. An end to the problem. But that's the mistake. Because in systems like this, the moment you try to destroy the evidence, you stop being the problem, and you become the proof. Becoming the proof changes everything. Not just for them, for everyone watching. By the time I stepped out of the car, the night had already shifted into something cleaner, sharper. The kind of quiet that settles in right before people realize they've been standing in the wrong story. The National Security Gala was exactly what it always is: polished, controlled, expensive without trying too hard. Black cars lined up along the curb, valets moving with practiced efficiency. Security layered so well it looked invisible unless you knew what to look for. I did. I walked in without rushing. No hesitation. Inside, the room was already full. Uniforms pressed, suits tailored within an inch of perfection, conversations calibrated. Everything looked correct. That's the thing about rooms like that. They're built to look stable, even when they're not. I didn't scan for threats. I scanned for noise. And I found it immediately. Victoria stood near the center of a small circle, one hand wrapped around a champagne glass, the other lightly touching the corner of her eye, careful, controlled, just enough to suggest she was holding herself together. "I don't even know what happened," she was saying, voice soft but placed perfectly so people could hear. "She's always been unstable." The word hung there. Deliberate. "I tried to help her," Victoria continued, "but she twists things. Now she's dragging us into some kind of investigation." Heads nodded. Not in agreement. In familiarity. People don't need facts to believe a story. They need something that sounds like it fits. I kept walking. No one stopped me. Because I didn't look like I needed permission. Black dress. Clean lines. No excess. No distraction. And on my shoulder. Visible. Undeniable. A security badge that most of the room would never qualify to carry. It took 3 seconds. That's all it took for Victoria to see me. Her voice stopped mid-sentence. The women around her turned slightly. And just like that, the room shifted. "What is she doing here?" Victoria said, quieter now. Not quiet enough. I didn't change direction. That's when my father stepped in. He moved quickly, intercepting me halfway across the floor like this was still his space to manage. "What are you doing here?" he said under his breath. Not a greeting. A warning. "I was invited," I said. He glanced at the badge. His jaw tightened. "That doesn't mean you belong here tonight," he said. "You've already caused enough problems." I didn't respond. He stepped closer. "You need to leave," he said. Now, there it was again. Control through access. If you can remove someone from the room, you don't have to deal with what they bring into it. "General," I said evenly, "you might want to reconsider that." He didn't like that tone. I could see it, but before he could respond, someone walked past him. Didn't stop. Didn't acknowledge him. Didn't even slow down. That doesn't happen to my father. Not in rooms like this. The Secretary of Defense doesn't adjust his path for anyone, unless he chooses to. And tonight, he chose to walk straight toward me. My father shifted slightly. Just enough. Because he had to. The secretary stopped in front of me, close enough that the conversation around us collapsed into silence. He didn't look at my father. He didn't look at Victoria. He looked at me. Then he reached out. Both hands. Firm, direct, respectful. "Chief Architect," he said. The words didn't need volume. They carried on their own. "The system has been fully restored," he continued. "Your response was precise." I held his handshake. "Thank you, sir." He nodded once, then added, just slightly louder, "And thank you for identifying the individuals responsible for compromising a $2 billion defense contract." That was it. No announcement, no spotlight, just a sentence, and the entire room recalculated. Behind me, something shattered. Glass hitting marble. Sharp. Final. I didn't turn immediately. I didn't need to. Victoria's champagne glass had slipped from her hand. Or maybe she dropped it. It doesn't matter. The result was the same. Silence spread outward from that sound. Not confusion. Recognition. The secretary released my hand. "We'll be proceeding with the next phase," he said. "Your presence will be required." Understood. He moved on. Just like that. Because at this level, nothing lingers. I finally turned. Victoria was staring at me. Not angry. Not defensive. Just trying to process. For the first time in her life, she didn't have a version of reality ready. The women around her had stepped back. Subtle, but enough. Distance. James stood a few feet behind her, posture tight. He understood faster. He always does. My father didn't speak. That was new. He was still standing where he had tried to stop me. But now, he wasn't blocking anything. He was just there. I walked past him, close enough to matter, far enough to mean something. And that's when it finally settled in. For all of them, not what I had done, not what they had done, but what this actually was, because the moment the truth enters a room like that, it doesn't argue. It replaces everything else. And once it's in the room, all that's left is whether you let people see it. I didn't wait for the room to recover. I turned and walked toward the stage. No announcement, no permission, just movement. You can feel it when a room starts to shift. Conversations don't stop all at once, they taper. One voice drops, then another. By the time I reached the steps, most of the room was already watching. Not because they understood, because they knew something was about to happen. I stepped up. The podium was set for later prepared remarks, safe language, controlled applause. I didn't touch the microphone. I didn't need to. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small USB drive, matte black, unmarked, like everything else that matters. There was a brief pause. An event coordinator stepped toward me. "Ma'am, this portion of the program hasn't..." I plugged it in. The system responded instantly. Override accepted. Display rerouted. The main screen behind me flickered once, then came to life. At first, it was just a still frame. Bright lighting. A familiar face. Victoria. Mid-smile. A few people shifted. Recognition moving through the room like a ripple. Then the video started. "Hey guys," she said, voice light, practiced. "So today I'm finally organizing my files." She laughed at her own line. The room didn't. On screen, the angle shifted. My laptop entered the frame. Same moment. Same position. I didn't say anything. I let it play. Her hand moved across the trackpad. Scrolling. Selecting. Dragging over entire directories she didn't understand. Someone in the audience leaned forward. Another person stopped moving entirely. Then, her voice, casual. "This is all just encrypted junk anyway." Click. Delete. The screen didn't cut away. Didn't soften it. Didn't explain it. It just showed it. Exactly as it happened. No edits. No narration. Just action. The video ended. No transition. The screen went black for half a second. Then switched. Infrared. Grainy. Colorless. Precise. My apartment. James stepped into frame. Victoria behind him. Same positions I had already seen. Now, so had everyone else. The angle showed everything. The bag. The laptop. The way he opened it like it belonged to him. The way she lifted her phone to record. A few people shifted again. Not from confusion. From recognition. They knew what they were looking at. James reached into his jacket. Pulled out the hammer. Even without sound, the moment carried. You could feel it. The hesitation. Then, impact. The follow-through. The second strike. The way Victoria leaned closer, making sure her phone captured it, documenting it like it was proof of something good. The frame froze. Hammer midair. Device broken open. Intent clear. No explanation required. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then it started. Not from the audience. From him. James took a step back. Then another. Like distance could separate him from what everyone had just seen. "This isn't," he started. His voice caught. He tried again. "This isn't what it looks like." No one responded. Because it looked exactly like what it was. He turned sharply. Pointed at Victoria. "It was her," he said. "She deleted the files. I didn't know what it was." There it was. No delay. No loyalty. Just redirection. Victoria stared at him like she didn't recognize the person standing next to her. "What are you doing?" she said. "You said it was nothing," he shot back. "You said it was junk." "You're the one who broke it," she snapped. "You told me to handle it," he said, louder now. The room didn't interrupt. It didn't need to. Because this part is always the same. When pressure hits, people separate. They protect themselves, even if it means tearing each other apart in front of everyone. Victoria's composure collapsed. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, this is because of her." She pointed at me. Finally, the story she had been building. "She set this up," Victoria said. "She always does things like this." No one wrote that down. No one nodded, because it didn't match what they had just seen. James let out a short, hollow laugh. "Stop," he said. "Just stop." He stepped away from her. Physically, like proximity itself had become a risk. "I didn't know," he repeated. That part was true. It just didn't matter. Victoria looked around the room, at the same people who had been listening to her minutes ago, the same people who had nodded when she said I was unstable. None of them moved. None of them spoke. Distance. That's how judgment shows up in rooms like this. Not loud. Just absence. I stepped away from the control panel. Didn't address the room. Didn't explain anything. Because everything that needed to be said was already on the screen. This was never about arguing. It was about showing. Because once people see it for themselves, they don't forget. And they don't need help deciding what it means. The silence didn't last. It shifted. Not into noise. Into movement. From every side of the room, men and women in dark suits stepped forward. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Coordinated. FBI. NSCS. You can tell the difference between security that's there to be seen and security that's there to end something. This was the second kind. James saw them first. Of course he did. His posture changed instantly. Shoulders tighter. Breathing controlled. Too late. 2 agents reached him before he could move. "Major James," one said calmly, "you need to come with us." "There's been a mistake," he said, quieter now. The agent didn't respond. He took James's wrist. Firm. Professional. Final. The second agent secured the other. The sound of the cuffs closing, louder than anything that had been said all night. Not because of volume, because of meaning. A few feet away, Victoria hadn't processed it yet. "What are you doing?" she said. "You can't just—" 2 agents stepped toward her. She froze. "No," she said, stepping back. "No, this isn't happening. Ma'am, we need you to come with us." Her composure broke completely. "This is insane," she said. "This is a mistake." She turned, searching, for authority, for control, for someone to stop it. "Dad," she called. She moved toward him fast, grabbed his arm. "Do something," she said. "Tell them to stop." He didn't respond, because he couldn't. 2 agents were already at his sides. "General Edward Whitmore," one of them said, voice steady. "You are being detained pending investigation for obstruction and interference with a federal case." That was the moment. Not when James was cuffed. Not when Victoria panicked. When he realized his rank didn't apply anymore. "You're making a mistake," he said. The agent didn't argue. They never do. Because at this point, it's not a discussion. It's a process. Victoria dropped to her knees. Right there. Dress against marble. Hands gripping his arm like that connection still meant something. "Please," she said. No one moved. No one intervened. Because by now, everyone understood what they were looking at. Not a misunderstanding. Not a family conflict. A consequence. I stepped down from the platform. Slow. Measured. Not for effect. Because there was no reason to rush. I stopped in front of her. She looked up at me. eyes red, makeup breaking. Nothing about her matched the version she had built an hour ago. "Charlotte," she said, "I'm your sister." I didn't respond. "You can't do this," she said. "Not over a computer." There it was. Still. Even now. That's what she thought this was. A computer. I leaned down slightly, close enough that she didn't have to strain to hear me. "That wasn't a computer," I said. A pause. Long enough for it to land. "That was national security." Another pause. "You didn't delete files." I held her gaze. "You deleted yourself." Her expression changed. Not completely, but enough, because for the first time, she understood the scale, not emotionally, structurally. I straightened, didn't wait for a response. There wasn't one that mattered. Behind me, agents were already moving them toward the exit. Controlled. Efficient. Quiet. No chaos. No scene. Just removal. And as they passed through the room, no one stopped them. Because once the truth is visible, there's nothing left to protect. Not reputations. Not titles. Not the version of the story people spent years building. After that night, everything moved the way it was supposed to. Not fast. Not slow. Just correctly. I didn't go to court. I didn't sit in a gallery or watch any of it unfold in person. I didn't need to. The outcomes came to me the same way everything else had: clean, structured, stripped of emotion. James's case moved first. Military court. Unauthorized access. Failure to report. Destruction of government property tied to a classified system. No speculation. No interpretation. Just facts aligned in the right order. The number being discussed was 15 years. Not dramatic. Not symbolic. Calculated. That's how those systems work. They don't punish. They assign weight. Victoria's case followed a different path. Federal charges. Financial review came first. Accounts frozen permanently. Assets seized. Transactions traced backward and forward like a map she didn't know she had drawn. Then obstruction. Then involvement. Everything documented. Everything verified. She didn't understand the language. She didn't need to. The outcome didn't depend on her understanding. My father's collapse didn't come with a courtroom. It came with a quiet update. Rank removed. Clearance revoked. Pension terminated. Access gone. Not reduced. Not negotiated. Gone. There's no ceremony for that. No speech. No moment where someone explains it to you in a way that feels fair. It just stops. One day, the system recognizes you. The next day, it doesn't. I received the reports in a single encrypted file. Dates, charges, status. Nothing else. No commentary. No justification. I opened it once. Read everything. Then closed it. That part of the story didn't need my presence. It had already been decided the moment they chose action over understanding. The office I sat in when I read it looked exactly like what people imagine when they think of power. Glass walls. Clean lines. A view over Washington that makes everything look smaller than it is. I kept it simple. No photos. No personal details. Nothing that needed explaining. The file sat on my desk for a few seconds longer than necessary. Then I moved it aside. Because the truth is, none of it felt surprising. Not the charges. Not the outcomes. Not even the speed. Because consequences don't come from one moment. They come from patterns. And those patterns had been in place long before that night. All that changed. Was that for the first time? No one was there to absorb the impact for them. And when that happens, people don't suddenly understand. They reach for the last thing they think still works. Access. The notification came through late in the afternoon. Trauma visitor request. Eleanor Whitmore. I looked at it for a second. Not because I was unsure. Because I already knew what she wanted. I approved it. 5 minutes later, the door opened. She stepped in slowly. Not dramatically different. Just less certain. The kind of change you don't see in photos. The kind that only shows up when control is gone. "Charlotte," she said. I didn't stand. Didn't move. She crossed the room anyway and sat down without being asked, like muscle memory hadn't caught up to reality yet. For a moment, she didn't speak. She just looked at me, trying to find something familiar. Something she could still use. Then the tears came. Not loud. Not performative. Just steady. "Please," she said. I didn't respond. "Your father," she started, then stopped. Corrected herself. "Whitmore. He's not doing well." I watched her. No reaction. Victoria, she continued, her voice tightening. She's terrified. She doesn't understand what's happening. That part was true. It still didn't matter. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. You have influence, she said. People listen to you. There it was. Not regret. Not accountability. Strategy. Maybe you can talk to someone, she added quickly. Explain the situation. Reduce the charges. Something. I rested my hands on the desk. Still, you want me to interfere in an active federal case, I said. Her expression tightened. Not interfere, she said. Just help. Help. The same word they always use when they mean control. We're family, she added. That word didn't land the way she expected. It didn't move anything. It just existed. I know things went wrong, she continued. But this is too much. They're going to lose everything. I looked at her. They already did, I said. She shook her head immediately. No, she said. Not like this. Not permanently. That's the part she still didn't understand. This wasn't temporary. There was no reset. No quiet correction behind the scenes. This was final. She wiped her eyes, trying to regain something she couldn't hold on to. Please, Charlotte, she said. I'm asking you as your mother. I let that sit. Then I reached forward and closed the file on my desk. The sound was soft, but clear. Family isn't something you ignore when I'm useful, I said. And remember when you need protection. Her expression shifted. Not defensive. Not angry. Just empty. Because now she understood. You don't get to decide when I matter, I said. The room stayed quiet. No raised voices. No tension. Just clarity. They made their decisions, I added. Now the system is making its own. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. Charlotte. I pressed the button on my desk. Security. The light turned green. 2 guards entered within seconds. Professional. Silent. Efficient. Please escort her out, I said. Eleanor looked at me. Not pleading anymore. Not angry. Just finished. She stood slowly. Didn't resist. Didn't argue. The guards guided her to the door. Then, she was gone. The room returned to silence. I leaned back slightly in my chair and looked out over the city. Everything moving. Everything functioning. Exactly the way it was designed to. Behind me, everything that used to define my family had already collapsed. Not because I destroyed it, because for the first time, I didn't step in to hold it together. And that's the part people get wrong. They think the breaking point is the moment everything falls apart. It's not. The breaking point is the moment you stop fixing what was never yours to carry. For a long time, I thought loyalty meant staying. Staying quiet. Staying available. Staying in place long enough for things to eventually make sense. I thought that's what made someone strong. It doesn't. It just makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to use. I didn't learn that from theory. I learned it from repetition. From watching the same pattern play out in different ways until it finally showed up in a form too big to ignore. Because what happened that night wasn't new. It just wasn't small anymore. People like to focus on the event, the deleted files, the investigation, the arrests. But those things don't come out of nowhere. They come from patterns that were already there. Victoria didn't suddenly start crossing lines. She had been doing it for years, just in ways that were easier to dismiss. My father didn't suddenly take her side. He had always done that, just with consequences that never reached this level. And me? I didn't suddenly become the problem. I had been the solution for a long time. The fallback. The explanation. The one who absorbs impact so everything else can keep functioning. That's what I was. Until I wasn't. The moment that mattered wasn't when the system flagged the breach. It wasn't when the accounts were frozen. It wasn't even when they were arrested. It was earlier. Quieter. It was when they decided without hesitation that I would take the blame. That wasn't pressure. That was instinct. And instinct doesn't come from one moment. It comes from a pattern that's been reinforced over time. That's how I knew it wouldn't change. Not with conversation. Not with explanation. Not with patience. Because the issue was never misunderstanding. It was benefit. They benefited from me staying where I was, so they had no reason to see anything differently. That's when something shifted. Not emotionally. Structurally, I stopped protecting people who were already prepared to sacrifice me. That's what boundaries actually are. Not arguments. Not ultimatums. Not dramatic exits. A boundary is quiet. It's a decision. You stop participating in systems that depend on your silence. You stop fixing problems that aren't yours. You stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from not understanding you. And most importantly, you stop offering access. Not loudly, not all at once, just consistently. Because once access is gone, so is control. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. You don't need revenge. You don't need to expose everything. You don't need to win. Most of the time, people are already moving toward the consequences of their own behavior. All you have to do is stop interrupting that process. Stop catching them before they fall. Stop absorbing the impact. Stop making their behavior sustainable. Because once you do that, reality takes over. And reality doesn't negotiate. If something in this sounds familiar, don't focus on the big moment. Focus on the small ones. The patterns you've been explaining away. The times you knew something wasn't right, but stayed anyway. Ask yourself one question. If nothing changes, where does this end? Because it will end somewhere. It always does. The only variable is whether you're still standing inside it when it does. I'm not telling you to walk away from everything. I'm telling you to look at what's actually happening, not what you hope is happening, not what people say, what they do, repeatedly, and then decide if that's something you're willing to keep carrying, because staying doesn't make you loyal, and leaving doesn't make you selfish. Sometimes, it just means you finally understood the system you were in, and chose not to be part of it anymore. Sometimes the hardest lesson isn't what others do, it's what we keep allowing. Patterns of disrespect don't start big. They grow because we keep absorbing the impact and calling it loyalty. Real strength isn't fixing every problem or staying quiet to keep the peace. It's recognizing when a system, family, work, or relationships only functions because you sacrifice yourself. Boundaries aren't dramatic, they're decisions. When you stop carrying what isn't yours, things may fall apart, but that collapse often reveals the truth. And once you see it clearly, you gain something more valuable than approval: control over your own life.